United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No music there, sorry.
Hey, no, just so you know, I gotta leave at 10 o'clock to go home.
Okay, so
Or
let's,
before.
good thing that we're starting right on now. Okay, let's go right on to the approval of minutes. Anybody had a chance to review if there's any edits or corrections? If none,
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes approved. Okay, we have one resolution authorizing the reclassification of 2 positions in the Office of Tourism and Public Information. David, you want to give us a little update on that?
Sure. So, as part of our,
You know, don't we have 2 minutes in here?
Yes, special meeting minute.
Do we have to approve them separately? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I only saw one there.
well, there was one on the special meeting on the 10th also, right
Okay,
before the legislative meeting.
So I'll move those.
okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes approved. Thank you.
No.
Okay. All right, David?
Yeah, part of our planning for succession and other things, coupled with a vacancy that we've had since February of this year, and as you know, the hiring freeze was recently set aside. As I looked at the staff and staffing needs in the Office of Tourism and Public Information, and understanding that sometime in the not too distant future, Janet was going to retire. The best option I felt for that work group was to do a reorganization and reclassify a couple positions. Primarily because, in my opinion, I don't know that I'll find another Janet Clifton. What Janet had a role in that office that requires someone with a lot of institutional knowledge, somebody who was very good and experienced in public information side with respect to how and when we approach various topics, and who sometimes we use as the person to share that messaging. And that often requires a really unique understanding of Oswego County and Oswego County government and members of the legislature, and just how best to approach topics and when not to approach certain topics. Also, her involvement in the tourism side of the business since that office was first put together. I think you and Janet were the first 2 people.
Janet and Peg Humphrey, I came in later.
Janet and Peg?
As a part-timer.
In Evansville, yeah. So, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to be able to find somebody that could do all of what Janet does right now, because of the kind of instinct, I guess I would call it, that Janet has about us as a body, as an entity, and all of you as members and how you fit into the picture. So I decided, rather than have a supervisory type position with the various responsibilities that she had, was to divide that work out a little bit more, and keep a little bit more of the supervision at the director level for that work group. Also, the changes that have occurred and that haven't stopped, the public information side of that team has, their workload in the last year has more than doubled, pretty close to tripled in certain sectors. So I still felt it was necessary to have public information officer, which Janet was and remains. And then take Kelly Jordo, who does the bulk of the public information work, make her a senior, and then bring in another public information officer that Kelly would supervise. Then on the tourism side, because there's like a little bit higher level of management kind of experience that you need to interact with our regional partners and New York State, Empire State Development, I Love New York program, and the reporting that goes on with them in order to get our matching funds. I wanted to take Lisa, who has been there some time and also has experience, and she came to us with experience from the Chamber of Commerce and other places. Move her up a grade so that she could not really be the supervisory type person that Janet is, but could assume a lot of the reporting and relationship responsibilities that Janet has with our other partners. And also, we've transitioned more, some of it as a result of the pandemic, into doing a lot more social media than we used to, and that comes from not having public meetings, and it's just the way that communications have evolved and seem likely to continue. And Lisa is good and capable of doing that. And then Mary Ellen, who has been retired since February, she and Lisa were kind of the clerical support for the other members of the team. So I still want to have a person in that title to provide clerical support. But then when Janet finally does leave, I still need somebody on the tourism side that can work with Lisa to kind of take over some of the things that Janet will abandon when she finally leaves, and that's why I've included that second person, that Lisa's new grade, to come in upon Janet's retirement. Overall, it produces a small savings in 2021 of around 5,000 or 4,257, and then in 2022, when I expect Janet to retire, she doesn't go before that, still a savings of 22,573.
Savings is mainly reflected in the amount of years and grade level that Janet's leaving.
Yes, yeah.
You're bringing someone else in, obviously, I was down from a 40 to a 30 or something.
I can't tell you.
But I mean, yes, so that that's a savings.
Yeah, moving a lot of people around, bringing in people with the necessary skill sets, but just dividing the work out more to compensate for the fact that Janet could do a lot of things that other people couldn't based on her knowledge and experience over the years. And
taking her job and kind of filtering it into other people picking up little pieces, because as you said, it's very difficult to get.
Yeah.
No problem. We're discussing the first resolution.
We like to think that nobody is irreplaceable, but quite frankly,
Janet.
she brings a lot to the county and to our team. And
now, do you have any names of anybody new coming up?
I don't have particular people in mind, although there is one person who has expressed an interest, a local person who has expressed an interest in the public information
Is this
piece.
has to be tested out, or
They'll all be competitive positions.
all
yes.
competitive?
Okay.
Finish it once you finish it.
Marie, please.
How would somebody locally be aware of it at this point?
Well, we have relationships with people in our partners that we do business with, both on the tourism and in the media world. And many of them know that Janet's not going to be around a lot longer, through casual conversation and otherwise.
Have you had any conversations with Katie Toomey? We would have probably a really good reading on.
Shouldn't talk about the individuals in the session.
Well, I mean, she's our representative for Center State, correct?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
I'm
I thought
talking
you were
to her
talking
as a
about-
representative, not
I thought you were talking
Yeah.
about.
like a friend on the
No,
street.
I'm saying,
Would she have would be worth the conversation to see who she knows in that circle?
Oh, I think that once we're authorized, we'll have a lot of conversations like that as we're trying to find the right people. But, quite frankly, it's difficult to start those conversations before you know that you're actually going to be authorized to take that next step. Because you don't want people to like, oh, I heard this, and I'm going to apply for this new job, and the new job never materializes. And
Somebody already heard of it, but okay.
yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Ed?
Dave, does this plan give you enough overlap with Janice, you think, to have a really smooth handoff?
Yeah, I think so. I think that when we get these other positions in place, hopefully before she leaves, I know she's leaving. I also know that there are circumstances that could result in her going very soon. And in her best case scenario, I think around the end of the year or beginning of next year. But I'm also aware of other things that she has going on, and she's brought to my attention that, it could be next week, or it could be January.
Any other?
So, are you going to be down? You're going to still fill the same number of positions by the time this is done, and they'll still accomplish the savings in 2022?
When Janet leaves and the last person comes in, there'll be one more person on that team than there is now, but it's still at a savings.
And so do we need a budget modification for this?
It's not if it's within your 5110 total.
No, for this year.
No, but still, even anything that happens this year will still be within the budget that you've allocated.
So this would take effect right after the regular meeting? Or is this does not have to go to the floor?
No, this would go to the floor. And Dave, is it your intention to implement immediately, or is it have ready to go January?
So I want to fill Mary Ellen's position. The others take effect. This budget is based on being able to find the right people and have them in place by approximately the 1st of September. But we would start looking. There's a process to fill in civil service positions, and my projection budget-wise is based on bringing these other positions in around the beginning of September.
Okay, so, but at least one of these is an upgrade to a current person, correct?
Yes.
So,
That also would be effective September 1st.
does that need to be in the resolution, or is it?
It's a good question, Roy. I don't know that specifically is stated anywhere. I think I provided an Excel sheet that laid it all out, and I believe on there it showed September 1st, but it doesn't say it in here.
It should be in the resolution.
Yeah, so if there's an upgrade that needs to be added to that resolve that explains the upgrades and an effective date, we can add that. You can do an amendment to, the committee could amend it to include that information, and that's how it would go forward to finance person.
Yeah, so this, and I apologize, this isn't the resolution exactly as I wrote it. It was modified by personnel, and my assumption was that they did what they needed to do. But apparently, that step was missed.
And so last question, HR, I mean, a lot of times when we get reclass, we see a sheet that shows what they were before and what they are going to be now.
Mhm.
Can that be included in the final packet for the pledge?
Oh,
So that's.
you're talking about the paperwork that went to vacancy review committee? That's part of this process?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
That'll be on that.
you have that already. Yeah.
Okay. That's, okay. I usually thought we usually see that in our packets as well.
Does anybody have any other questions? Then would we like to, someone make a motion for the amended resolution to include?
To include the upgrade position and that this is effective, and that it's effective September 1.
I'll move.
There's two. Kelly and Lisa are both reclass upgrade.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Well, are they upgraded into an existing position?
no.
And they're just being moved? Okay.
New title.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Okay. One last question.
Mhm.
With the upgrades, we're still seeing a savings.
Yes.
Magic.
Just like that.
I will make a motion to
I have a little
amend
bit of Harry Potter in me.
to
Oh, I believe it.
to show an effective date for both of the upgrades to be September 1st. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Okay.
Now on the resolution as amended.
Okay. Now on the resolution as amended,
I'll make a motion, we accept that, pass it
I'll
on.
second
second. All in favor? And into the hands like this.
Thank you so much. I apologize. I meant to mention we were approving the minutes approval piece. There were a couple errors on the minutes previous. Did I get mentioned? I'm assuming not. I just want to double check. So the previous minutes had the call to order piece that's noted as the, sorry, it's noted as one of the wrong meeting. Special meeting, sorry. It says infrastructure committee meeting. We just want to have that revised. And also in the committee review and decisions, David Turner explains how the process will work. I'm assuming that's what we process. I just want to mention that. Okay, I don't know if that needs to be done formally. But I wanted to mention
Should I say that?
on the Thursday, June 10th special meeting. That's all just mentioning. All right, jumping over to,
Well, why don't I'll make a motion to amend the June 10th minutes for your suggestions.
all right, did
Can we do that?
does it need to be formally modified, or can we just change the?
He wasn't here when we did it before, so.
Yeah.
By motion or by
Just do by
consensus?
motion. Just, motion.
Okay.
Okay, you got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor? Aye. All right. Okay, jumping out of that into committee review and decisions, the Monty Flynn appointment. This is an exciting appointment, one that has been years and years in the making. We take the word that we have finally been authorized a seat on the Central Board. So Monty Flynn, our designee, the state has authorized it, and he will fill that term starting immediately, I believe, correct? And
He's
we'll
already
go
been he's already been to board meetings once a month.
There you go. So that's exciting. Mel, do you want to give us a little update on him being in that seat and what that means to us, and maybe just a little more quick update on transportation stuff?
Well, the big update is going to be in the next meeting. Monty Flynn, he is the head of our mobility manager. He is our mobility manager for Oswego County. And we've been trying to fill this seat for years, and the governor would not respond. They would not accept. There was a lot of communication. And finally, we do have somebody, and he's excellent. He's already attended a board meeting. He's already starting things. It's Oswego will be represented in transportation with the central board. And we needed that because it was them just making decisions and doing stuff, and we'd find out secondhand. So at the next meeting though, Monty, as mobility manager, as well as Frank, who is from St. Lawrence County, is going to be making a presentation to us because we have it is a report that has to go into, I believe it's the federal government. Yes, it's for the federal government. We have to do this report every 3 years. Yeah, every 3 years. And so this is the best updated report, unbelievable amount of information in this. And I'm going to make sure that each member gets a full hard copy to look at this prior to next meeting. It's got a lot of information. We're coming across the deadline to get this to the state and federal because they were waiting for census information, but it just never came, so we finally decided we had to do it. So the final one is coming to the Transportation Advisory Board meeting in July, and so as soon as that board A-OKs it, then when our next EDP meeting, they're going to make it'll be a virtual, because both him and Frank are in Florida, so it will be a virtual, so that's why I wanted you guys to have the hard copy ahead of time, so that you can look at it. They're going to make the report. We approve it as a committee, goes to the legislature, and then they can send it in. And what it is, it's for our funding, that we have to have this. And I think you'll be very impressed with this report. It's extremely thorough. David, any comments of what you've seen on this?
It's been a lot of work by both our mobility management team and the coordinated transportation planning committee staff. There's lots of things being held up by the census numbers. Last we heard that maybe September-ish. We're hoping sooner rather than later, but this report also is going to help guide the, let's call it, reorganization and better coordinated planning for our transportation network. So first mile, last mile pieces hopefully will get in there.
Yeah.
Modifying routes, adding routes, deleting routes, finding ways from things that we're learning as we talk to people about the American Rescue Plan. We're learning more about the need to try to get people to work and to workforce training. So this is kind of falls into line with a lot of other stuff that's going on right now, and we're looking forward to having it approved or accepted at least by the state and federal partners.
Yeah.
Are we doing anything as a body to influence using smaller, more fuel-efficient, streamlined vehicles than these huge buses? A constituent of mine and her husband got on the bus and rode it for the day, got lost. And they said they're virtually empty. And I mean, we have a lot of bikers, a lot of people walking. We've got these gigantic buses, empty, flying up and down the road. And I could see if they were full, but there's nothing. They call them ghost buses, the neighboring people in our area. If we requested or asked that we have a smaller bus, a more fuel-efficient bus system, I mean, doesn't that go hand in hand with what's happening in the world for fuel efficiency?
Yes, it does. And right now, in order to be eligible for the federal funding, where most of our capital money comes from the Federal Transit Administration, and with operating money comes from the state transit operating system. Vehicles have to be 15 passengers or greater. It's required. Well, that's what we have right now. Most of them are in that 15 passenger range. We have some bigger ones as well.
I've only seen the big ones.
Yeah. we have asked twice in this calendar year and once in last calendar year to get a waiver to be able to purchase and use smaller van-type vehicles, just for the reasons that you suggested. Make us more flexible, make us more efficient.
We ought to talk to Tesla and see if there's any test vehicles available for counties.
Well, there is money, and there will be more coming soon, we've heard, for electric vehicles of all kinds and electric charging stations as well. Right now, the head guy in New York State Department of Transportation just refuses to answer our request. Now, off the record, if I can, another of his colleagues who reports actually to this guy has suggested to me that sometimes no answer is as good as an affirmative if you choose to do so.
Yeah.
But you're at your own risk.
No news is good.
Monty's a great guy. I did
Yeah.
request manifests that were never provided to see who's on the bus and,
Right.
look at the flow.
And as I say, if we can get this waiver, but if, as he says, if no news is good news, if enough times that we've asked and they haven't said no.
What we'd hate to do is spend, $30,000 on a 7-passenger van and then have the department tell us that we made a mistake and have to come up with that money someplace else. So,
Or sell it to a large family.
when we requested it, we have communication, we have a paper trail, and
It all hinges on the capital plan, though. I mean, the capital plan provides for the reimbursement or the payment for these buses. So you don't want to buy something you're not going to get reimbursed.
They have various classes of vehicles that they define at the federal transit level, and what we've asked for is outside of those classifications, smaller than 15. Especially as we
And
get,
fuel efficiency.
especially as we get to the first mile, last mile piece, they could play a better role. I wish I had a different answer for you. We've recognized the need for a couple of years now. We've asked many times to be granted permission to do that, but it's fallen on deaf ears.
We're trying.
All right. Any questions? Thank you for that. That's excellent. Again, really excited. Appreciate that Mr. Flynn is willing to serve in this position. It's nice to have representation on that board. So, all right. Again, I want to thank you for all the work you guys have done on that transportation committee. It's such an important need. One of the things that we've seen throughout the years of the Anti-Poverty Collaborative is just how important transportation is for jobs, for getting people out of poverty. So again, we have seen that for years. Our kind of development study outlined it, the need for these things too. So this is great. We're moving in the right direction.
Tim, just to follow up though, I think it'd be nice if the committee approves the new plan, the TAC committee, which is an advisory committee to our committee, that you guys make that clear that we advise unanimously to do this. And
That's our July meeting.
And then we can acknowledge back that, thanks to TAC for working on this and to the team with the mobility management.
That's great. Okay, let's jump over to our department updates. Mr. Treadwell is here. Welcome, sir. Do you want to step up to the seat and give us an update on how Oswego County is going and whatever you feel is important to share?
Yes, sir. Be happy to. First of all, just wanted to give you a brief update on the CFA process. We were able to put together a forum that was held at the conference center here in the city of Oswego on the 16th of June. There were about 35, 40 people attended that meeting. Municipalities, private businesses, good attendance. I think it's a good, informative meeting. Tim and his crew always have in the city. the Fulton folks were there from the city as well. And, so that process is underway. As was noted in that process, Empire State Development and their funding is going to be in cycles this time, as opposed to end with all the other CFA applications. On the 12th of July, there will be a meeting of the scoring committee, which I sit on the scoring committee, to review any applications that have been made to ESDC at that point in time. And then the full council meets on the 22nd of July, where they can actually sign off on Elwood's project. We don't know how many yet we will be receiving, but I know a few that are in the loop now. And then on the August 16th, the scoring committee reconvenes again to score all of the applications, since the deadline is July 30th for any CFA application. So all of them will be scored on the 16th, and then the full council meets on the 26th of August to cast their vote decisions in terms of which projects will be recommended to the state for funding. We don't know when the state will ultimately make their announcements. We believe it will be either late November or early December, as the normal trend is. Any questions pertaining to that?
Mike, have you seen any of our local businesses that have put in or are going to put in applications that have been working with you guys? Have you had?
We're working with several.
Okay, excellent.
That's great. I know that was already submitted their CFA application.
So they'll be in that first round that was due June 30th?
If they're applying for ESDC, yes. There's a few that are like that. We're working on 2 or 3 others right now. We hope that we'll get it in that round. If not, they can still submit later. There's a number of projects that we're working with that are the trend right now. I mean, and it's probably a pretty good trend. There really is an effort, an outreach to retain professional services that we have with the CFAs, particularly if they're going to DEC or something like that. We got one project right now that's submitting 6 CFA applications for project with various state agencies. So that's positive, and we'll hopefully have a good response to the CFA applications.
That's great.
If anybody has any questions, you've got the May EDAR, we're working on the doing one right now. Any questions pertaining to that? There is a lot of large-scale project activity going on right now with a number of companies in the county, not in the county, that we hope to attract to Oswego County. And it's would be pretty exciting. Hopefully by fall, we'll know of some of these projects. One of them I don't mind mentioning is Healthway. They're looking at doing a major expansion of that facility in Alaska. That's very common information that they're going to need to do that. Now they've got the design for it, and we expect that they will be submitting a CFA application. We're working with them on that. So that's visit that company. It's pretty exciting about what's going on. So Dale's done a great job with that company. And demand is overwhelming for their air filters to probably this year. And any other future issues that has to do with air quality. So we're very pleased with that. The OC, we're having our annual meeting on 14th of July. Typically it's the breakfast meeting, a lot of fun, a lot of eggs, a lot of bacon, but it will be a Zoom meeting this year.
The eggs and bacon will be delivered to each household.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, we'll do that. FedEx. Depends on whether you want extra trips.
Virtual bacon, you can have it any way you want.
That's right.
But at the annual meeting, which would be at 9 o'clock, everybody would get a invite to the Zoom meeting. We'll do our traditional information release, the annual report, and some other detailed information about things that are going on in the county, presentation on that. There'll be an election for our board members. We have 24 board members. Everybody serves a 3-year term, and so a third of those, 8 of those are up for either re-election or this vacancy. We will fill that vacancy at that meeting. So that's in process.
Hey, Mike, on that process, I've had a number of questions in the past about how those board members are appointed. Are they researched out? Are they searched out by the current board? Is there an application process? How
Well,
would they be interested?
We establish a nominating committee. It's the responsibility of the nominating committee, and the nominating committee is chaired by Tricia Peter Clark and Connect here this year. And there's 2 other board members on their nominating committee. Based upon the survey, we will survey the 8 individuals that would be up for either re-election to make sure they will remain on the board. If there's an opening, we'll fill that opening. They will do the research. They will be nominating committee to identify. And we get people inquiring about being on the board, maintaining a file, a list of people that have expressed an interest, and so we would fill that vacancy if one, or if an individual elects to step down from the board due to whatever reason, then that would be a vacancy.
Sure.
So we have one of those this year. And this year we will also be electing a new treasurer, and we will be backfilling that position with someone with the secretary. So 2 officers. Usually officers are every other year. This year because one of the individuals elected to step down 20 years on the board has created an officer slot.
Understood. So if anyone locally was interested and we were to direct them, they would direct them to your office and operations to the county, and then they would put them in contact with the nominating committee.
Right.
Okay, that's great.
Tricia's done a great job. I mean, nominating committee this year.
Excellent.
But we're set. We're set now for the election.
Right.
At the annual meeting for any openings. The other thing that will happen, which didn't happen last year, the COVID thing, is Operations Oswego County has 5 awards that they give out every year at our annual meeting. Well, we're doing this with videotape interviews with the recipients of the awards, and we'll have that as well as they will be on the Zoom meeting as well. So the awards are the Ally Award, which is an organization that we worked with closely in the past 12 months or so. And we're not going to say who it's going to be, because let's announce it at the annual meeting. It's the Ally Award, the Business Excellence Award, which is a company in a business that's done something exceptionally good in the last year and a half. And then there's the Martin Rose Economic Developer Merit Award, which is recognizing an individual that has contributed significantly to the economy in Oswego County, recognizing the individual there. And we recognize, it's called the D. Heckathorn Entrepreneurial Award. We'll be recognizing I'll say this time, there's a businesswoman that will be recognizing for that award. And then there's the Jobs Award, which is recognizing a business has a major impact upon. It is tough during COVID here to have a major impact on jobs, but we found a good one that we're going to recognize that did an extremely good job doing it. So that is basically the gist of the annual meeting. We hope you will be able to join us on that day. I want to just make one other comment. I want to say thank you very much for Phil, Jim, and Dave for making the presentations to the industry group concerning the federal funding. And it went over very, very well. Had excellent agendas. Most of the major companies in the county was there. And I'll appreciate being updated on that process.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Go ahead, Rick.
Did we ever get a final report from Center State regarding their partnership trying to advance the work on the Economic Development Advancement Plan? Did we ever get any closure on that?
Yeah, we did. I don't know if Dave want to speak to it, but we did. We received a final report with some potential next steps and some pricing for those. It didn't ultimately move beyond that point. I think it was mainly because that was right around that February-March time where everything shut down. But there has definitely been some discussion about what are the next steps. I know actually through the ARP, and I know Dave was really discussing that on a local point as well as Mike on with our partnerships there. But no, right. And for your question, nothing has moved beyond that. But we have taken recommendations or outcomes from it to kind of direct the next steps, but we've discussed that both. I mean, really, that's a good question for this area.
Because of the timing now, we're getting back to some sense of normalcy. I just wanted to make sure it's on the table that we're getting that.
Yeah, actually, I mean, we could have, ask Mike to that, because I know, like, you do work with, even on our monthly meetings, you do discuss how we're moving the needle on the economic development strategic plan, the initiatives that have come out of that. At least that is a part of my understanding, is a part of what you and the board do discuss on at least on a somewhat regular basis. And then we'll take over Dave's. I know Dave's got some stuff locally too that we're working on. But Mike, do you want to speak to that just a little bit for a few minutes here?
Well, I mean, we consistently, when we develop our annual action plan, we look at things that were involved in the strategic investment plan and try to identify. Obviously, when you look at that Moines study, it's a pretty hefty handful of things to look at and to address, and of which economically and manpower capacity, you can't do all of those things.
Well, it was interesting. We had some.
Things.
I thought we had some really strong teams involved in some of the specific areas. So that just so that there's some continuity, even though we lost a year's worth of continuity, that we can get back and say, where were we? Who are the people that were working on that stuff? Where did that team leave off? I mean, because there would seem to be some really good action going, and then it really fizzled out. So, same with our.
Well, specifically, there's the one item that we just discussed at our last IDA board meeting was this portal idea that directly came out of one of those groups, one that Gary Toth and Pam Carapoli chaired, and the idea of having this one-stop shop where any business that's looking to expand in Oswego County would go here. Any business that's looking to come into Oswego County would go here. Anybody with questions would go here, and there'd be a tracking system that would allow that lead, so to speak, not to fall off the map, right? So it would always be, if someone had a question, we would be able to make sure they were followed through to the answer. It was that proactive side that we've been pushing for in the legislature, and I know the discussion has been held. There was an update at kind of the status of that system. Obviously, with everything taking a year off, everything was disrupted, but I do know I can speak to that directly. That's something very passionate. The IDA actually designated almost, I think it was $25,000 to get that moving, to get that rolling. So there's some funding set up on the side to do that.
Yeah, we're probably 75% complete on that. Conceptually with that, we're still got to fine tune some things before it will be rolled out.
So just to say, at least those items that were highlighted in those groups haven't fallen off. But I think I think we all agree we need to find a way to get those things back up and running again. David, you had I think a little bit discussed that too.
Well, I think so. We don't regularly mark on the board, hey, there's another thing that just happened that's consistent with what we said we should be moving towards. But as we're moving towards different initiatives, we recognize it came from the input that we got during the course of putting that project together. We're doing things all the time that are consistent with what the goals and objectives were outlined in there. We don't have per se like a scorecard to say, okay, check this one off, check that one off, but it does help guide us as we look at, okay, where should we go next? And I'll point to the effort that the county and the IDA put together with the Village of Phoenix and the town of Schuylkill to take on an $8 million project to get that wastewater treatment plant upgraded and some conveyance improvements in the town. So, that was identified, that kind of work was identified in the plan, but we didn't say, hey, we're going to go do this because the plan, said to do it.
The plan
we moved from the
in the right
plan.
direction.
Yeah, it's directing us, and we're fulfilling a lot of those things all the time. But I guess if your question was, is there a report to say we've already checked this off and checked that off? Not per se.
Yeah, I just wanted to see where we were from, because we lost so much continuity, and I got completely out of the loop on that.
But those things are consistently reported via the EDAR report that goes out and things that the IDA or OC is involved with. I truly believe that the thing that has been addressed most effectively is the wastewater treatment, which was one of the biggest hits in that study in terms of efficiencies. And that's been dealt with at Fulton, at the airport, now it's being dealt with in Schuylkill. Plus, in addition, the need to identify and take possession of or control of additional property for purposes of having sites available. That's being addressed also in Schuylkill with 200 acres of additional land being added to the industrial park in Schuylkill. So there's a lot of things that are really, really active.
The broadband project, that was in the plan, and that we're working on that. And at the regular board meetings, whenever Mike does a report on, we did this, or we did that, or we met with these people, there's always a note that, this is consistent with what was in the Moines plan as well.
Yeah, I would say that the one thing that I think that we were really gaining some steam on 2 years ago was those shareholder groups. And I think that's the one thing. There's one thing that I could see that we could do better, maybe going forward, just we weren't able to, that we could, is starting to put those groups together. And I will say that we've had a number of these ARP meetings that almost have felt a little like their predecessors, right? You get the people in the room who don't necessarily always get in the room, and you start to have conversations that need to happen that haven't been. And between the shareholder groups for the economic development group or study to begin with, those were very valuable. But then the ones that were put together by Center State, that were very valuable. And now these ARP ones, I think we're starting to see very similar way to what the Anti-Poverty Collaborative did. You put the right people in the room to start discussing it, you start to see some collaborative change that maybe you wouldn't have before. So that would be the one thing that I would hope to see come out of it. The previous chairman of the legislature had said every chance he got, we want that to be a living document. That can't just be a bunch of money spent up front and then go on a shelf somewhere. I think that between the combined work between our office here at the county, through the offices Mike oversees, I think that has not sat on a shelf, and I think that was really our intention. That said, it was almost 5 years ago at this point, so it would make sense.
Yeah.
It would make sense to potentially look at reevaluating and maybe doing some sort of a small scale update, even in-house, something like that with partnerships, just to see what is different. Ready monies came in and changed a whole lot, right? ARP money come in and changed a whole lot. There might be opportunities here that we never thought would have happened this quickly, and so to be able to go back to that framework and then to reevaluate where we stand, I think would be very beneficial. So maybe that's something we can look into too.
Yeah, if I can. At each of these small stakeholder meetings that we're having regarding the American Rescue Funds, Phil's made a very clear statement that it's the county's desire to be thoughtful and impactful with these monies. And so, the reason that we haven't rushed out to do any project like right away, except for restaurant recovery, which will, by the way, the restaurants will start registering this week and public later this month. Every group that we've talked to, number one, we've kept it small so that the stakeholders could have time to give us good input, and we recognize that their time is valuable, so we've tried to keep the meetings to an hour and a half. Had a small group of the key members in each of those stakeholder groups, and shared with them that this isn't just an information meeting. This is an introduction to our process, and we're encouraging all of you to start today when you leave here to give us feedback, so that when you make decisions about how those funds are spent, we have really good data, and we have identified needs that we're trying to solve, and they should be ones, in the best case scenario, that will create lasting impact on Oswego County, making it a better place to do business, to raise your family, all those things that are important to all of us. So I think that the feedback that we've had so far has been really exceptional, and we're engaging, as Mike said, the right people in these meetings, and I think we're really going to see some progress that you're all going to be pleased with at the end of this process. And I want to add that we're trying to do this in a way where we'll be able to give you a good report about the feedback that we've had, about the potential, why this was identified as a need, what we might be able to do to resolve that need, and lay it all out so the legislature can have the right information to make good decisions about how we spend the money. It's a slow process to get to that point, and I appreciate that you're all being patient as we go through that.
Ed, go ahead.
Will this committee be the core committee that will review that before it goes to the full legislature?
That we don't know yet. You gotta talk about, because this money touches jurisdictions within many committees. So we gotta talk with the chairman about how to set that up. Could be a designated special committee just to oversee this that includes membership from the other committees. We don't know yet. We're working through that.
Good. Great.
Mike, I have a question. I was excited to see Lydell has got new interest purchasing. How will that affect the water treatment plant and our plants? I'm just curious.
They have their own treatment facility,
Right.
which is bigger than.
Oh, it's wonderful. I know. It's very good. And they're going to have a considerable amount of employees come in.
We expect that they will at least be at the level that Lydell was, the new owners. The one good thing about acquisition of a facility like Lydell is an old plant. It's been there forever. When you buy those facilities, you don't buy them to pack them up, to relocate them, because you cannot, I don't think you can duplicate that facility anywhere. And they do really good work, and they've really taken off.
We have an unlimited quantity of fresh water. Good highway out, nice infrastructure right there.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping, but I just think it might affect the sewer thing.
Well, we've had discussions relative to their wastewater treatment plant, relative to making it a municipal facility with the prior owners of it. That was a pretty good conversation we had. I mean, it didn't take place. It was something that was being considered, because Lydell itself, or the whatever they're going to be called in the future, they really don't want to be in the sewer business. And in fact, sewer capacity could be converted into a municipal facility. Then I think they would be open to that discussion.
But they're not giving it away either. So
Well,
they recognize it has value.
I don't think they have a million buyers either.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that puts us in a good position for negotiation. It certainly seems like.
Well, if they can find a way to dispose of that and save them money in terms of operating costs, I think that
They would still use it, just pay their.
They'd be a customer, yeah. And it'd be really easy to hook them into the Fulton system. It's only a couple of miles down to their pump station.
I think it'll be more lucrative for us.
Well, that's the other issue is, we're not technically in the wastewater business. We're helping a lot of the people who are, but some of those people who are really don't want to be either. So at some point, as a more holistic approach to wastewater treatment in the county, there needs to be another level of discussion about what's the best process going forward. As an example, Parrish has a treatment plant, very expensive for a community of that size to stay compliant and make the upgrades as things extend past their useful life, and without adding capacity when you need to. That's a four-way interchange on Route 81. That could be prime development area on 81. But is Parrish capable of providing the water and sewer for the type of space that would be required for major employers?
I mean, I think we have to take our lesson from Solvay paper, the missed opportunity. It was all hooked up at site. My husband put the extension ready to accept them.
Yeah.
and the sewer was unable to be run from the city. Personally, I would have hand dug it at that point. It now has nearly 3,000 employees working unbelievable amounts of overtime and expanding currently. It seems to be a good marriage with Amazon right in its back door. And I just feel this type of opportunity would have been huge for us. And we can't miss those opportunities anymore.
But the other aspect of the Lionel wastewater treatment facility is on the east side of the river. The existing facilities on the west side of the river.
Minetto has extensive
If
facilities.
there could be successful economic, because of DRI growth on the east side down to the Nestle sites, projects there, and even further south. I mean, that could be one of the issues, and has been, is getting this wastewater treatment underneath the river and over to the Fulton plant. There's been some restrictions and limitations in that regard.
How did Minetto go across the bridge? Without Minetto, you wouldn't have any of Seneca Manor or any of that medical development off of 481. I believe they have an insulated line that's accessible.
I don't
Right on
know
the
how
bridge.
that's done.
Yeah.
That was my assumption.
I'm gonna go look, find out.
Well, there's a whole lot of excess capacity in Minetto.
Minetto has extensive ability to double, and the whole thing is right there. It just needs to be brought up to
See,
speed.
and that's really, I think, and I know everyone has known pieces of this even beforehand, but that's really what that economic development study showed. It said, listen, we've got assets. We know we have assets. It's just how do we link them together for the best long-term strategic growth? And that's the pieces. You interview business owners that say the same thing. It's just, we've got to get people together whose interest is doing this to completion. What is the next step? If it's an authority, how do we do it, right? These are the discussions we need to have. And otherwise, every year from now, we all talk about all these great assets we have, right? But we don't get somebody together, we don't get some interested parties together to say, what is the next step to actually link these things together? We've got Minetto, Lionel exists, Fulton, right? We talked, Oswego Town is now moving theirs out, right? New partnerships all across the county. How do we really start to tell the story here that says, hey, we're ready for business, we're ready to develop, we're not going to just look at what we had 10 years ago.
It's
These
about
great
getting
assets.
permits too, I mean.
Oh, yeah. But and also,
Permitted for 1 million a day currently. Full capacity is 2.5 million with an expansion of 2.5 million additional possible. That's a significant piece of property.
I think a lot of it is having the staff whose job it is to look into every single day. I mean, you look at the folks at Minetto, I mean, they're busy dealing with what they're dealing with, right? Even the leadership in Minetto, they're busy dealing with it. They may not necessarily be looking to say, how do I link this to a surrounding municipality? But somebody, potentially county or a county organization, needs to be looking at that, I think. And that's the piece. I know we've had those discussions. How do we do that?
I just feel if government runs it, it'll go too slow. Okay, good point.
Well, the problem is if business runs it, sometimes there's not enough interest for the business to do it because unfortunately there's a little bit of cost that maybe they won't see the benefit.
Please,
It's gotta be a
we're,
partner.
How have other successful areas merged systems together, is my question, of similar size in nature? I mean, has anybody obtained the effluent discharge study? Cornell University did an extensive one. We might be able to get funding because there's only so much water you can put in soil. In the past, we drew out with a well, dispersed with a septic system. Now we're putting into the soil. There's so much effluent discharge in the ditches that it ultimately reaches the lake. And it'll be worth more than oil before it's over. And it's certainly looking that way more and more. But my question would be, who's done it? How did they do it? Who can find out?
I don't know if there's like a resource outside of New York. I guess we could look within New York through Environmental Facilities Corporation or even ESF might have some records on that kind of stuff. I don't know if there's like a central clearinghouse about who's taken municipal systems and brought them all in under one house, like an authority or something else. We can ask DEC or
Well,
something.
see, with the dank one up north, did that start out as municipals that were gathered up, or was that started as an authority?
I think the only one that was in place at the time was Watertown, and then Dank grew everything out from there. Yeah.
I mean, it's good conversations to be having. Let's.
Fort Drum, have they?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Well, these are great conversations. If we could, is there more? This is not dead. We need to continue this conversation. We need to do it, and I'm hoping potentially maybe through the ARPA piece of it. And we've never had the kind of money we're going to be having come through here right now with that rescue plan money. Infrastructure is allowable, certain kinds. So there are conversations that need to be had. And so my hope and my understanding is that the group that we put together, that my understanding is we'll have all input of all parties interested in having input. We should be able to continue this conversation. It's not going to die. So if we could, though, let's jump from this. Let's just give something else you want to say there, Dave? Or?
Please wear a safety harness when you go under that bridge and look at the pipes.
I'm gonna go up and just ask. The state's on there right now.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious how they cross. They're gonna know.
Yeah.
They're gonna have blueprints there.
I wasn't involved and don't recall.
I know you would want me to have the finest.
All right. Michael, do you have anything else?
No.
If not, I'd like to bring Joe up. And Mike, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your update. I'll welcome Joe is here from Soil Water. Good to see you, sir.
Same
I
here.
don't know if you have any input on what Legislator Shop was just talking about with the fluid discharge, but not your area of expertise.
Not right this second. But
Not a
if you have something he knows to look into, I'm happy to do that. It's all right. I can just give a few highlights on just some of the things we've been working on. It's obviously been a little while since we've been in person, so I'll just give a few highlights of the major programs that we do have. As far as forestry, it's definitely been a busy year for that. A lot of questions on tree health. We've been working on some forest management plans for about a half dozen different landowners. We will have that accomplished by the end of the summer, or at least going into the fall. Everything ranging from forest management, timber harvest, tree planting, and I think a couple of the major ones have been the major invasive species, which are emerald ash borer, the gypsy moth, which that was a major one, and the hemlock woolly adelgid. As far as emerald ash borer, it is without a doubt here. It's really spread this year. As far as visibility, it's obviously been here for a few years now, but without a doubt that's increasing. A lot of calls on how do I treat that, what do I do now, things like that. So if you do have any constituents that have questions on any of these major invasive pests, please feel free to have them give us a call. As far as the gypsy moth, I'm assuming everyone noticed the defoliated oak trees, aspen trees, crab apples this year. So that was without a doubt an infestation that it's very, very noticeable this year. It's probably been here for at least one other year. It obviously has to build up, and you'll know how bad that'll be next year with how many egg masses that you see. So everyone sees the tan patches and the light colored patches on trees in the fall and winter time. Those are the actual egg masses. So going into next year, we'll have to see how many of those are. There are to see how bad things will be. There are a number of things you can do as far as a wide scale treatment. It's obviously there's an expense there. There's a lot of things that homeowners can do though, so they can definitely give us a call. There is a great on the state website. There is a great resource as well and a good fact sheet. There's also hemlock woolly adelgid that was confirmed in this county this year on 3 different Oswego County properties. 2 of them I'm working with Human Services Committee and as well as the Youth Bureau to get a treatment done hopefully this fall on that. So we just have to work out some of the financing and funding on that. We obviously are still managing the reforestation properties. We'll be looking into it pretty soon, our timber management for this year. We have 1 sale that's out, will need to be cut, so that's not active yet, and then 1 that was cut last year that'll be cleaned up. So within the next few months, there should be quite a bit of activity going on with that. A big thank you to Dave's office for for helping us with the redesign of some county reforestation signs. Did a great job, and we'll be ordering those soon and getting those up. Just over the years, they've fallen down, damage, shot, things like that. Lots of vandalism out there on some of those properties. So those are things that we'll be getting up. Hopefully this summer, we'll be putting in an order soon, and within a few weeks, we should be seeing those up on the roadside. General technical assistance this year and really last 2 years really have been just a huge variety of calls that we've gotten from a even bigger variety of landowners, from municipalities to general landowners, residential, rural, both rural and urban, farmers, recreational clubs, sportsmen's clubs. And folks do seem to be taking things quite a bit further now as far as wanting ponds or drainage projects and things like that. So a lot of what we've been doing is being that liaison between the DEC and the landowner, municipality, whatever that ownership is, and just assisting with that permit process, because there's a lot to navigating it. So we have been doing that, organizing calls, virtual on-site meetings with Army Corps, DEC, getting both those entities out there. A lot of times both of those have some jurisdiction over whatever site you're working on. One particular project, we're working with a snowmobile club on actually a couple different bridge projects, just taking the distance as far as with design all the way to permitting and that sort of thing. We do have another project that we're working on. I don't think implementation will take place this year. We've been working on for about the last year the planning process, now the permitting process, which will probably take the better part of this year. Is we're building a walkover, or it's actually basically a bridge on the dunes at Deer Creek Marsh to facilitate some equipment getting onto the beach by the DEC for maintenance and things of that nature. So it's quite a project, had to be engineered. It's a relatively long bridge, and that will hopefully be taking place at least break ground next spring. I think would be our goal. A few of the things that Erica Schreiner will be giving a little bit more input on perhaps next meeting or within the next few meetings. Education, essentially most of the big events had to be virtual, and it will still be for the rest of this year. The Envirothon, that was a virtual regional Envirothon, and then the Conservation Field Day, that's set up at Selkirk Shores generally. Folks or the classes go through a loop and see about 5 different presenters. So she actually was able to set up some videos for that last year and has access to that. We'll likely add, which will give you a little bit more detail on that. So we're looking, because schools have to really make decisions now, so you're really basing your decision on whether or not to have it virtual or in person now, months ahead in advance. So we did opt to have that virtually. And then there's also the agricultural aspect of our office, working on 3 best management practices for three different farms right now. And I'll let Erica give a little bit more information on that, but obviously just the general agricultural technical assistance as well, the drainage and things of that nature. And then one of our big programs, Invasive Species, we have two major invasives that we're working on this year, and that's giant hogweed and water chestnut. As far as the giant hogweed, there's more than 60 sites in the county. The majority of those are in Hannibal, Mexico, New Haven, sort of on that western side of the county. There's a couple more scattered, very just random sites, but most of them are in those townships. And it's our job to work with the New York State DEC to manage this program. And we do have to make landowner contact. A lot of that's done through phone calls, emails, even letters. Sometimes that part is actually difficult. Manage a lot of information having to do with these sites, where the plant's located, anything else about the site, and then we do bid that out to a contractor to control those with a couple different means of control. And we're quite successful this year. We are seeing a few plants that are starting to flower now, and that's been since probably about June 15th. but that program will last throughout this month. And after that, it gets difficult, even if you were to say the plants really die off. But what happens is that the seed will, start to disperse and start to fall. So we should have pretty good control this year, and we have everything mapped out. Great coordination with the contractors, so we're happy to have some success with that. As far as the water chestnut, this year we do have our hand pulling crew, so we have a crew of 4 accessing different scattered populations of water chestnuts throughout the Oswego River. They'll be working in Oneida Lake as well as in Rice Creek. One thing that was different this year is that we did have to get permits to work in wetlands for hand pulling water chestnuts. And as simple of a process as the actual pulling may sound, the permit process is not simplified. So that was actually pretty extensive. A lot of mapping, very detailed mapping to find out ownership on both sides of streams, creeks, ponds, things of that nature. The river itself, actually, and we were not able to. There's probably 2 or 3 water bodies that we were not able to get permits for. We could try next year. The one caveat with getting a permit for a wetland is that you have to have a signature by all owners of the water body. So even water body that looks as though you could canoe up and down. Take for instance the Little Sand River. You actually have ownership that extends into the middle of that. So when that occurs, you can't just put in a permit yourself. You have to have all. If there's 30 plus landowners up there, then or probably much more than that. You would have all of their signatures on that permit, or at least permission from them in some way, shape, or form. So that part was a little bit difficult, but I think we have the major infestations covered, and we are certainly pursuing that and doing well with that. As far as the water chestnut herbicide treatment on the Oswego River, that'll take place the week of July 19th. We do have the permit in hand. There are a couple different permits that you need, DEC as well as the Canal Corps. Those are all in hand. Contractor is ready to go. And we did the estimate of about 100 acres right now that are ready to be treated. And it actually does show some success because we had one region in Ox Creek, which a few years ago that started at 60 acres. This year we put in for 26 acres in that area, and when we went to do our trip in to see what we're looking at for this year, there was actually no chestnuts present. So at least we're showing. Unfortunately, it's regional. Where if you want a relative, I guess, if you want to say what's successful, you have some that increase, you have some that decrease. But at least when you're having some drastic decreases like that, it's showing some significant success, and we are seeing the density down a bit in areas for past recent area patches.
That's great. Thanks, Joe.
Sure.
Ed, go ahead.
Do you think there's a correlation between the low water and the amount of water chestnuts that you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. That impacts it every year. It just depends on, and when you have a spring with really high water, you actually have a tendency to see less. But I guess if in this particular, it's not. I guess it's been up and down as far as temperatures. Sometimes if you were to see last year was lower water and very high temperatures, and it really did explode. And what can happen is, unfortunately, those seeds are good in the sediment for 10 to 12 years. So if all things align, all things come together, all the factors that you need to have germination, then that can occur. So it doesn't seem to be that it's really exploding this year. But I think when you're seeing that, that significant reduction of no water chestnuts from past years, a very dense, closed canopy situation, I think you're seeing some success in the control. So that's our hope.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Great. Are you using Roundup in any of this?
No.
So is county using Roundup in anything?
I don't, not that I'm aware of. I think we asked that last year.
Subcontractors are using
Subcontractors.
but
No, sorry.
we aren't using any at all.
No, it's a different herbicide for that's being used in the aquatic area. It's Garland for the hotweed, the water chestnut, it's clear gas.
Sounds like an alien spaceship or something. Okay, well, Joe, thank you very much for that update. I appreciate it. As everyone knows, if you ever have any concerns in your municipalities or anyone reaches out to you, I know Joe is always available. His office is always interested in participating, so be sure to use them. So, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, let's jump over to Phil. Do you want to give your update? Close this out. Closer.
While Phil's booting that up, if I can, a couple things. This is the last month for the broadband survey. Please continue to push for people to go on and do that. Various ways, online, in person, over the phone, on paper form. All the libraries, towns, and villages ought to have those paper forms in their offices, or you can call the number, they'll send you one. Call the number and they'll talk you through the survey on the phone. So that does end at the end of July.
Do you have any copies of that?
Yeah, there's copies in
Can't see it. Do you see it?
across from Chanel's desk on that little table, or I can send you as many as you'd like.
Is any of the data in as to where it's coming from, surveys?
We are doing, so we have the 5 counties in the Central New York region, Onondaga, Oswego, Cayuga.
But I mean, do you know what's come in so far? I'm just curious if the northern area of Oswego County are forbidding surveys so far. But that's really needing. I didn't know.
I don't have a breakdown by town right now, but I know that of the 5 counties, and considering the difference in size between Onondaga, you would expect that they have more than we do, but we are second among the 5. So.
They may have a municipality too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious. If that's actually responding.
Wasn't any. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. Please pardon my back, those of you who are not face it. I wanted to give the committee an update on where our National Marine Sanctuary project is, because, as you know, we've been involved in this since 2014 to have part of Lake Ontario established as a National Marine Sanctuary based on shipwreck heritage. And the reason I wanted to do this is a lot's going to start moving this week. NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which oversees these, is going to publish in the Federal Register tomorrow the draft environmental impact statement and the draft management plan for a sanctuary in Lake Ontario. You may have gotten an email from me last week that the Wisconsin proposal was finally approved. That clears the decks, pardon the pun, for NOAA to focus on ours. There are congressional hearings, congressional briefings occurring today. NOAA would have had a representative here today to do this, but they are briefing Congress on their intent on this publication over the next couple of days. So what is going to happen? They are publishing this in the Federal Register tomorrow. It's a document that provides information on the proposed Lake Ontario National Marine Sanctuary based on shipwrecks, its purpose and need. It will include alternative boundary proposals, that alternative to what we had initially said. Of course, it's an environmental impact statement, which has to be done, discuss the different consequences of the alternatives, and there you go. There are 3 alternatives being proposed. One is we do nothing, no sanctuary. And I say we from NOAA's perspective. Boundary alternative 1 is different from the one that the 4 counties here proposed. It includes the original area of Lake Ontario that we had proposed, but it also includes part of the Thousand Islands, because they've found that there are many diveable shipwrecks in Thousand Islands. The other alternative is our original boundary area. NOAA is not stating what their preference is. So what happens when they publish in the Federal Register, they set up, well, there's alternative 1. You can see that it goes up to just into St. Lawrence County to latch onto a couple of shipwrecks up there, the Keystone and the America, and all the wrecks down the St. Lawrence River out into Lake Ontario. Alternative 2 is our original proposal, which did not include any of the river. These are the resources that they have identified within the larger area, including the river, 64 known shipwrecks. In the original area we proposed was 43. So they're looking at it as a resource-based, what can we bring into under the management of the federal government. They are also publishing a draft management plan. The management plan was drafted by the Citizen Advisory Council from the 4 counties under the guidance of NOAA. NOAA took that back. Their staff tweaked it, added programmatic elements to it, and an operations plan for it. So, true to their word, NOAA took what the community wanted and has encapsulated it into the federal. I'm very happy to let everybody know that one of the things that we said was a non-starter if they did it, they did not do, and they honored our request. The proposed regulatory framework, absolutely no impact on regulations on recreational fishing. So that is, in fact, the Wisconsin final plan strictly, or very clearly states that NOAA will have absolutely no jurisdiction or regulatory control over commercial and recreational fishing there. We expect the same thing is going to happen here. So it's the environmental impact statement and the management plan. So as I said, they're beginning congressional briefings today. They're doing all the notifications to the affected governments, the indigenous tribes and nations, and the council. And then tomorrow it's all published, and they begin the public outreach portion of this with a news release, a new website, social media postings. They've developed a poster that they're going to get to all the counties to spread around the communities. Hard copies of the documents we'll be receiving. And there's another full council meeting Thursday night to discuss how the rollout went. We'll be getting our own news releases out locally with our local leadership's quotes in it, all for the purpose of attracting public comment to meetings that NOAA is going to have to listen to people's reaction to what they have published and come up with. What they're launching a new website. It's going to have all the documentation, very transparent, the full plan, the full environmental impact statement, fact sheets, some of the examples. Here's a story map they're going to have on their website to tell the story of the area. They are going to distribute fact sheets to have available throughout all the communities affected. And the public meetings are going to be 2 in-person ones, one here in Oswego, one in Clayton, and August 19th, 18th, and 19th, and they're going to have 2 virtual ones on the 24th and the 26th. They will have the standard format of NOAA will present their ideas and their concepts to the public. There'll be an opportunity for us as local leaders of the sponsoring counties to say what we think, and then the general public will also be able to comment. That's not the only opportunity to comment. They can do it in writing also, verbally or in writing or online. They'll be publishing where you can go ahead and type what you think of what they've come up with. And they've also refined how they do this. They're very mindful about wanting the community's input and being very careful about what they don't want this to be a top-down. So they publish the 2 drafts. They have public meetings. Those drafts include everything they want to do, but they also include a few proposed regulatory concepts about anchoring into shipwrecks, and so a lot of it mirrors what's already on the books for New York. Then they have these public meetings I just told you about. Then they go back to their offices, they take all the public comment, and they refine everything that they published based on the public comment, and they publish it again as a proposed final rule. And then you have another opportunity for the public to weigh in on that once they have everything, all the exact language that they want in the management plan and the environmental impact statement. Then they take all that public comment back again before they publish a final rule that establishes the sanctuary. When they do publish that final rule in the Federal Register, boom, you have a national marine sanctuary. We'd be the only the 16th in the world. So what the tentative timeline is, public comment on this portion is open from August, or from tomorrow through September. They will probably publish again, I would assume, end of this year, beginning of next year. Right, their final rules published. We're looking at designation of our national park here in September of 22. So this has been a long 6-year process, but now we're in the final year. Assuming there's not overwhelming objection or something goes wrong, we can be having a big celebration in 4 counties in September. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that, because this week you're going to start seeing a lot of publicity, news stories, and I wanted you to know what it was all about.
Now, we've had a public forum on this prior, correct?
Right.
And we had a lot of input when we've done that, positive, negative.
It's mostly been positive. I mean, there's been a couple people who are negative on it because they don't trust, federal government. But it's been overwhelmingly positive. The meetings that were held in Fairhaven and Oswego were the best attended. I think with the newer interest in the St. Lawrence region, that the meeting in Clayton will be very well attended. And so far no one's been very true to their word. It's gone exactly as they said it would. And they've been very open and transparent, which is encouraging.
The one thing I noticed in that, you said that they would be notifying indigenous tribes. I know on land it's for burial grounds, but why would they be doing it for underwater? It's not limited to land. Number one, they are required by the federal government to engage with any indigenous tribes that historically have been in the area. So that's why we, when we did the nomination, went to the Onondaga Nation, told us what this was about, and got their support. We knew that was we knew that if an indigenous tribe objected to anything, it could sink the entire project. But there are submerged archaeological sites from indigenous habitation. Not quite so much on the open lake, but especially up in the St. Lawrence area. St. Lawrence,
yeah.
The boundary probably goes to the high water mark anyway, so it could be shore.
Goes to the shore. They don't claim anything on land for this. They've worked well with lake carriers, and it's not going to affect shipping lanes or port operations or any of that. They've really done their homework and done a good job.
Now, right now, could somebody, I think you said something about the anchoring to a shipwreck. Is that something people do now?
Yes.
So that this would prevent people from doing that?
Right, and that's one of the, there's going to be a couple of proposed regulations that might give old divers like me pause, because we're used to being able to do whatever we want. But that one, that's why they do a presentation at a public meeting first, so that everybody is on the same page. What they want to do, of course, anchoring into a historic resource will damage it. What they did in Wisconsin is they put that rule in with a 2-year delay, giving them time to put safe moorings on Shipwreck so that they are fully allowing continued access to the resource for recreation, but in a way that doesn't damage the damage. The other regulation that people will probably think about is they want to be able to know who is out on particularly our deep water wrecks with tethered ROVs and submersibles and cameras, because you have people who don't know what they're doing, and the cables will get caught up in them and damage them. So they're looking at a possible permit program for that's free, but they just, if you're going to go out there with an ROV to explore Shipwreck 600 feet down, we just want you to register with us and make sure you know what you're doing, no cost, but then we know who's out there in case there's any damage or what happened. That's going to be, when that was first talked about, some folks in the fishing community says, wait a minute, we use fish finders on cameras, tethered cameras and stuff. I said, no, that's not discovery. This is discovering somebody who wants to go have an ROV go down inside a hole and stuff, and could potentially lose it in there or damage it. So all that's got to be explained in these boat meetings so people don't assume they're wrong thing.
In your opinion, would this permit or would this prevent offshore windmills having to be erected in that?
I don't think it would prevent it. They would have to work around it if they did that. Generally, marine sanctuaries aren't used to lobby for one political cause or another on a political issue, because a marine sanctuary, Shipwreck has a defined affected area. You could build a windmill 600 feet from it and not affect it. But it would certainly require anyone proposing to build those, to really do their homework on the environmental or archaeological impact of what they're proposing. And in fact, a few years ago when one was being proposed out here to run a power line from Blue Island to 9 Mile out here, they had to do a very extensive archaeological survey. They found the shipwreck right near the path, so we would have to alter that.
Great. Anyone else? Bill, again, thank you for all the work you've done personally on this. I know this is a labor of love for you, and we appreciate all that you put into it. It's exciting and encouraging to see this potentially coming to completion. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
And obviously for the rest of the staff who's helped out as well. All right, I think lastly, then we'll jump over here to Dave if you want to close this out.
Yeah, coincidentally, we're not sure about this, but it's possible that the Port Ontario designation could come to completion somewhere around that same time. So, there's still a lot of work to be done there, but potentially that could be sometime next summer or next fall as well.
This was just an interesting thing. A friend of mine, equine photographer, who's been all over the world, been a friend of mine for quite some time, went to Palm Beach and spoke with her aunt, who's very old, and she said, where do you go, Randy? Oswego, New York? And she said, yes. She said, I was interred there as a girl.
Really?
Her name is Reba Rogoff. And Randy's going to ask her all the details. She'll be in Palm Beach tomorrow. And I said, in an hour. She's going to talk to her in an hour. But this has got to be one of the last remaining. And she was a girl. She ended up very successful. And I'm just going to try to get as much information as I can.
That's great, yeah.
It'd be nice if we could even do a FaceTime, talk to her and report it maybe. I don't know, if you're even interested.
Well, the folks who are doing that historic analysis right now are very focused on the safe haven piece. So
Okay, so she, she's still able to talk to people, so.
Kevin Hill might be good, Kevin,
Okay.
pass on to Kevin,
Yeah.
that contact.
I'll have more information later this morning.
So two things, just quickly on the advertising side of our business. Recently, the U.S. Department of Commerce announced that they're going to invest $750 million in travel and tourism. This story was picked up by Tribune News Service and widely distributed. And on the digital version of it, we had a banner ad at the top of the story and another different banner at the end of the story. And that was part of our regional promotion. So that was something that came about as a partnership with our partners in Jefferson and St. Louis County. And then also partly due to our relationship with folks at the State Fair who have some history in Oswego County, was brought to our attention that there was an opportunity to do some advertising around the Chevy Court free concerts. It's 58 different shows during the course of the State Fair this year, and we'll have one of our 30-second commercials in a group of other commercials that play prior to every one of those shows. So that'll be a nice outreach for getting to our what we call staycation type visits for New Yorkers as opposed to drawing people from outside of New York. So we're looking forward to that.
Cool. Anything else? And you want to give a quick ARP update? Anything else that's going on there? I know we actually, have you heard anything more on the other smaller municipalities funding? I know that the state had kicked everybody back 30 days. Have you heard anything more on that? Or any of our local municipalities who are expecting the funds to be delivered?
Well, probably the most recent update is that we're working with them to make sure that they all file their request by this, what's today, the 6th? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is the 9th. Is their deadline. So we want to make sure they got all that paperwork in. That's what we've been helping them with most recently. We have had good conversations with them. Just, I guess, in a very brief summary, we had the initial meeting that you were all invited to May 26th at City. School districts were invited, all of you, and all the towns and villages and cities as well. Since then, we've met with stakeholder groups that include the human service providers, major employers, and the County Association of Mayors and County Association of Towns. And next up will be healthcare community. So we're taking a very refined approach to making sure we drill down to everybody that will be interested in this. Bill mentioned before, all of the various legislative committees in some way will likely be touched by what happens, whether it's intergovernmental cooperation or health, human service, infrastructure, tourism. The tourism and hospitality business sector is specifically called out in the American Rescue Plan as one that was identified as being harmed during that. So yes, it is relevant to this committee, but it's relevant to all the rest as well. So what that structure looks like, about who is final oversight or provides the guidance, hopefully you'll all be involved in some way to the extent that you choose. But that's beyond my scope to say, to find what you folks do. That'll be the decision of your members.
Have you had a good response from the local municipalities? Do you need anything from us as legislators reaching out to our supervisors and things like that, or do you feel like most of them have an understanding of what is needed? Because you hate to see any of these folks miss a deadline and lose out on millions of dollars.
I would just, it wouldn't hurt to check in and say, have you filed your application to make sure that you're going to get your funds? We have had and I'll just add this. Some of you may have heard the story, but we've had folks from the very first meeting say to us, I have no idea how I'm going to spend this money. I don't know what I can do that could possibly help my town. It's very confusing. What can I do? Can I just give you the money? And at that point we said no. Well, you can. It's allowed, but we said no. We really need to understand it better. And then a subsequent meeting of the town supervisors, someone said almost the very same thing. I don't know how I can spend this. What am I going to do? It's going to go to waste. I'm going to give it back. So we offered an example, and this was part of our attempt to get them to think more holistically and comprehensively. We said, willing to bet that in your town you have people who have jobs. And I bet that some of those people have kids. And I also bet that some of them have child care issues. So maybe as a town, you're not able to solve that problem for them. But what if there was a countywide initiative to try to make child care more affordable and more available? You could potentially, if you wanted to, put some of your money into that program, and you would be helping people in your town through that bigger umbrella of trying to address a need that is obvious in probably all the towns and villages. And it opened a lot of eyes. I think that example of don't just focus on your little geography. Focus on the needs within your geography and what else is going on and how you might be able to solve those by working with other people. So for the first time, I think in a long time, those discussions drove a joint meeting of the towns, and the town supervisors and the mayors will be meeting jointly in July to talk about working together and working with the county and other people to use the money wisely. So
that's great. Anybody else have any questions for Dave? If not, thank you all for coming. A little bit longer than normal meeting. I appreciate your time, and I'll look for the motion to adjourn. Okay. Second for break. All right. All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.